Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. A little earlier show than usual because today is Memorial Day, so just want to take a moment to pay tribute and salute all the men and women who sacrificed their lives for this great country. So be sure to keep their family and loved ones in your thoughts and prayers today, as we never forget the sacrifice that they made for us. So got a packed show for y'all tonight. Or it's not tonight, it's today. It's like I said, it's earlier show. Julio Jones, and he could be going to Seattle because the Falcons, Seahawks, they've been having discussions about whether he's going to get traded there. Also, the Phoenix Suns have tied the series, and I've said for the last couple of weeks about the Lakers. Okay, they're in concern mode, but they're not quite yet in panic mode. That's changed. It's panic time if you're the Los Angeles Lakers, and if you're a Lakers fan, I'll get into that later on the show. Plus, going to lead the show off with the whole Kyrie Irving fan situation in Boston. Got some strong thoughts on that. Also, the Clippers have tied the series after being down 0-2 against Dallas. So here are my thoughts on that and why I got to give the Clippers some credit, although series is not over. It's basically a best of three at this point going forward. The fortunes for the two LA teams have literally changed on a dime. It's crazy. But instead of going into an actual basketball game, we got to go once again into the aftermath of a basketball game as it pertains to a fan. So obviously the last week or so has not been a good one when it comes to player-fan interactions, because you've had Trae Young has been spit on by a fan at Madison Square Garden. Russell Westbrook going to the locker room, had popcorn dumped on him by a fan in Philadelphia. You had John Morant's parents who said that in Utah, basically fans were, calling Ja's mom, every sexist name in the book, and his dad every racist name in the book. So they've had to deal with that. And now in Boston, a city which certainly has as colorful a history with this kind of stuff as anybody in the NBA. And this is not to bash all Celtics fans because that wouldn't be fair, but it's safe to say they've certainly had a history with this. After the game, a game in which might have been, to this point, the pinnacle of what we've seen for the big three in Brooklyn with the Nets. KD, 42 points. Kyrie, 39 points. Harden only dropped 22, but he had 18 assists. Those three guys combined, just those three for Brooklyn, scored 104 points. Jason Tatum on the other side did all he could. He dropped 40. Dropped 50 in the Celtics Game 3 win. I thought it was going to be a sweep, but hey, give Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker and those guys credit for getting that win at home in Game 3. But that is not the story. Not the fact that KD played amazing and Kyrie played amazing and James Harden did his thing, right? Not the fact that this series is likely over. Nope. It is another fan interaction with a player in Boston. You've probably all seen it by this point. Kyrie Irving's walking off with his teammates to the locker room after the game is over. And some fan, I'm going to go ahead and call him by his name, Cole Buckley. He deserves to have his name mentioned for what he did. Cole Buckley, from the stands, has a direct line at Kyrie Irving and throws what looked like it didn't look like that water bottle had, been drank out of too much. It looked like a full water bottle, threw it right in the direction of Kyrie Irving. According to eyewitnesses, right there next to Kyrie, said it grazed his head. And people saying, oh, it's just a water bottle. Let me tell you something. If that gets Kyrie in the eye, that thing could have put his eye out, okay? Like that could have been some really, really serious injury for Kyrie Irving if it landed where that fan intended it to land. So I'm hearing a lot of this, and I can't believe how much pushback that this is getting. Like how few people are coming to Kyrie Irving's defense, regardless of what you think about, how he's carried himself or whatever. This is not acceptable. This just point blank. This is not acceptable. You've got fans, particularly Celtics fans, saying, oh, he stepped on our logo. He almost, I heard one fan say it was like he was killing a cockroach, right? He was really, rubbing it in. After the game, he goes up to the Celtics logo at half court and kind of digs his foot in to the logo. It's like a sign of disrespect. Oh my, it's paint. It's paint. It's a logo. Get over it. Okay? When a guy's been hearing F Kyrie chants the whole night, yeah, I'm going to be a little frustrated. You say, oh, the way it went down, you don't disrespect the man like that. If you want to boo him, fine. That's okay. No. Fans boo, I get it. Okay. But you don't, the profanity-laced chants, the throwing water bottle. I will give credit to some of the fans that were pointing out who the guy was that threw it. There were fans in that area that saying, hey, this idiot threw a water bottle at Kyrie Irving, and the cops got him, and that was he's obviously been banned from TD Garden, and I believe he's being charged with assault and is going to appear in court tomorrow in Boston, as he should. But at some point, Adam Silver's got to get a hold on this, man, because I've counted 5 incidents, 5 in the last week. You've had Carmelo Anthony walk into the locker room, called every disrespectful name in the book by fans who would never say that to Carmelo Anthony if they saw him out in the streets. You then had a fan dump popcorn, food on Russell Westbrook. Okay. You have a fan spitting, the ultimate sign of disrespect. Because what you are saying, if you are spitting at a person, you are saying, I value the ground. I value dirt more than I value you. You had a fan at the Garden spitting on at Trae Young. Okay. You then have Ja Morant's parents in Utah subjected to every racist and sexist name in the book and not feeling safe there. And then now you have a fan throwing a water bottle at Kyrie Irving. This has gotten out of control. Listen, I'm not even going to apologize with how emotional I may sound right now, because this is ridiculous. Because too often, some fans, certainly not all fans, these are bad apples. These guys do not represent the vast majority of NBA fans. Obviously, if so, we'd have like an epidemic of this. But it's starting to turn into something of that, right? Because you have fans that go to the arena that say, because I've paid to go to the game, okay, that gives me the right to do whatever the heck I want to do to these guys. And it's sad. So what they are saying is, I don't view you any more than just an entertainer. I don't care that you're a human being. You are there to entertain me. Has some little bit of racism behind that. I think it's safe to say. Hear the stories Bill Russell tell. Bill Russell, either he or Larry Bird. I would argue it's probably Larry Bird, but not by much. Bill Russell won 11 rings. Okay, he's the ultimate champion. Bill Russell has never went back, except for one time when he had to present the Finals MVP trophy to Paul Pierce in 2008. Outside of that, since Bill Russell retired from the Celtics, which I think was back in either the late 60s, early 70s, he has never been back. He's never been back to Boston. Now, why is that? You hear some of the things that those fans back in those days were saying to Bill Russell. Ain't nobody would want to come back. And you hear Danny Ainge, the GM of the Celtics. Danny Ainge, just for context, I think I looked at it, as a player and an executive, has been a Boston Celtic for 26 years. And after Kyrie made the comments he did about last week about not having to deal with this kind of stuff, which, hello, Danny Ainge said, I don't know what Kyrie's talking about. I've never seen any of my teammates deal with racism in the stands in Boston. Well, ask your own players. Marcus Smart wrote an excellent piece. Marcus Smart is a current player for the Celtics, really, really good player. He wrote a piece for the Players Tribune about a time where he was going out of the parking lot after a game. It was after a playoff game, and he was, there was like a car coming. Okay, there's a car coming in the parking lot, and he thinks that it might be about to hit this woman and her young son. And so he said, "Hey, get out of the way, get out of the way." And she calls him the N-word. I'm not going to say exactly what she said, but she called him the worst racial slur you could possibly use towards a black man. And so their own players got to deal with it. And so it's sad. It's pathetic. And the NBA made a statement. Adam Silver made a statement basically saying, we're going to have extensive security now more at these games. And they don't have a choice. I think what Kevin Durant said last night was, pretty much summed it up. He said 2 things that stuck out to me. He said, number one, he said, your mama wouldn't want you throwing stuff at NBA players. Okay, your mom raised you better than that. She wouldn't want you throwing stuff at grown men or anybody for that matter. And secondly, he said, grow the blank up, grow up. And we saw, and you know what? I'm glad we saw this kid's face. He's 21. Cole Buckley is his name. I'm glad we got to see his face. I'm glad that he got to be publicly humiliated, because when you're exhibiting this kind of behavior, it's what you get. You don't throw stuff at players. It ticks me off because we're seeing with the playoffs, since it started last weekend, these arenas, Boston I think it was full. If it wasn't full, it was darn close. Madison Square Garden for games 1 and 2 of that series, the Knicks played against the Hawks, looked completely full. And I'm sure it's going to be close to that in game 5 on Wednesday. Right? So, you're having these arenas, there's more fans coming in. It's great. It feels like NBA playoff basketball, so much better than last year in the bubble when it was just an empty gym and artificial fan noise. Like it feels great. And then you have instances like this. It's pathetic. The fans should be charged with assault. You throw a water bottle at a human being. Okay? Come on, man. And people saying, oh, he stepped on the Celtics logo. Give me a break. It's paint. Okay, it's paint on the center of a hardwood floor. Get over it. He didn't step on a human being. It's a logo. It's a leprechaun, for crying out loud. Jeez. All right, now back to real basketball. So the Phoenix Suns yesterday tied the Los Angeles Lakers. The series is tied 2-2. Chris Paul played excellent, albeit with a hampered shoulder. And the biggest story of the day, thankfully, was not a negative fan interaction, but it was Anthony Davis once again going down with an injury. This time it was his groin. And more bad news for the Lakers, according to Shams Charania, great NBA source from The Athletic. He said Anthony Davis is unlikely for Game 5 of this series, which I believe is tomorrow night. It is officially panic mode for the Lakers. I've said for the last couple of weeks, the Lakers had, AD was dealing with injuries, and LeBron was kind of in and out of the lineup there for a minute with the ankle. And I said, you know what? Get in the playoffs, get healthy, they'll be fine. I said it's concerning that they weren't playing good basketball at the time toward the end of the season. But, they won those last 2 games on the road when LeBron and AD were back, and it's like, hey, that looks like the team we saw in the bubble. They barely survived Golden State in the play-in game, and they lost game 1 against Phoenix, but they come back, they win the next 2. They won game 3 in blowout fashion. So it's like, okay, they'll be fine. They'll get past Phoenix. Chris Paul's clearly hampered by injury. So there you go. And then once again, Anthony Davis goes down with injury. It is panic mode for the Lakers for this reason. Chris Paul looked healthier than he has the entire series, as healthy as he has in the entire series since the shoulder injury in game 1 yesterday afternoon. Outside of LeBron, LeBron was all right, but everybody else for the Lakers, nobody showed up. I'm looking at the numbers right now. Dennis Schroeder was just abysmal. 3 for 13 from the field, 8 points. That's not going to cut it. Andre Drummond, 5 points. That's the Lakers didn't acquire Andre Drummond to get 5 points. You got guys like Kuzma. Kuzma's become unplayable at this point. I don't know why Vogel gives him the minutes. Frank Vogel gives Kyle Kuzma the minutes that he does, but he's become unplayable at this point. You got to put Montrezl Harrell in, and you got to put Talen Horton-Tucker in. Talen Horton-Tucker can give you buckets off the bench, can give you a boost. I don't know why he's not playing. Caruso, 3 for 8. He was terrible. So, Morris, 3 points. Like, this is not going to work if you're the Lakers. And so the series that, Phoenix has the home court advantage again, and it is a best-of-3 series now, right? First team to win 2 games from here on out, you're going to the second round. If AD is out for Game 5, I think I would guess, at least I would assume that the bettors in Vegas are going to favor Phoenix to win Game 5, which how couldn't you? The Suns won Game 1. They lost Game 2, but it came down to that last minute. LeBron hit the dagger 3, which put it away. But that was a nip and tuck ball game in the fourth quarter, and the Lakers just kind of pulled away at the end there. And that was with Anthony Davis scoring 34. Well, it's in all likelihood, he's not going to be on the floor tomorrow night. So this is make or break time. This is gut check time for the Lakers. And this is exactly why. I think Michael Jordan's the greatest player of all time. I think LeBron is the unquestioned number 2. To me, if you don't have Jordan and LeBron as the top 2, whether you think LeBron's the greatest or Jordan's the playest, whatever, if those aren't your 2 best basketball players ever, you don't know the game. It's as simple as that. You don't know the game. And that's no disrespect to Magic or Kareem or Duncan or Bird or Kobe or any of them. None of those guys were as good as LeBron or Jordan. None of them. This is why I said about 2 months ago, when the Lakers were dealing with these injury issues and AD was in and out of the lineup, it was if LeBron James, if the NBA Finals conclude 2 months from now, a little less than 2 months from now, the NBA Finals conclude with LeBron James holding the Larry O'Brien trophy, he is the greatest player of all time. And today, May 31st, 2021, I think Jordan's the greatest. But if LeBron is holding the Larry O'Brien trophy when this season is over, he's the greatest player ever. Because you're dealing with, you got Anthony Davis, great player. At his peak, he's a top 5 player in the NBA. At his peak, at his best, he's a top 5 player. The problem is he's not available most of the time. He gets hurt. He's been getting hurt since he was in New Orleans. I think he missed his entire first season due to injury. So that's the thing. AD has always had a history of getting hurt. And it has really been the case this year. It's been his knee, it's been his shoulder, it's been his Achilles. I mean, it's just been a lot of different things with him. And I also say LeBron would be the greatest if he wins, because when you look across the coast, look across the country to Brooklyn, when you got 3 dudes scoring 104 points by themselves, you can't guard KD one-on-one. You can't guard Kyrie. You can't guard James Harden. I mean, that team in Brooklyn offensively is unstoppable. Boston put up 125 points last night. Okay? If I'd have told you the Celtics are going to put up 125 against anybody else, you say, hey, they're going to win. Heck, they might win in blowout fashion. Against Brooklyn, though, it's like, well, how good was their defense? And some of it was bad defense. Some of it was the fact that when Tristan Thompson on the floor, you can't help. But I'm getting to, I guess, 2 X's and O's right now. But the point is, the Lakers are in trouble. There's no question about it. They are in trouble because AD's out for Game 5. If he comes back for games, he's not officially out. He's unlikely. That probably means he's out. Once we get to Game 6, he's definitely not going to be 100% healthy. And Phoenix knows that. DeAndre Ayton, he's going to play physical. Jay Crowder, he'll play physical on AD. All the big defenders that Phoenix has, they're going to try and rough AD up when he does come back, we assume, in Game 6, if he's even available. So what we're going to have to see here, and it's sad because the man's in year 18, 36 years old, but is it too much to ask? LeBron's going to have to go back to like 2018 LeBron with that Cleveland Cavaliers team that he just dragged to the finals. I mean, that team had no business in the NBA Finals, and somehow he got him there because he played maybe the best stretch of basketball he's ever played in his life. That's probably what the Lakers are going to need in Game 5. Chris Paul looks healthier. Devin Booker's confident. DeAndre Ayton, I feel like, has had a really, really good series. And then you look on the Lakers side, Drummond was bad. Schroeder was bad. Caruso was bad. Like, usually some of the guys, especially like Caruso, like, you kind of expect these guys, okay, they're fairly consistent. They were awful yesterday. Now, maybe it's a bad game, but I don't know, man. I feel like everything happens for a reason in these series, in these 7-game series, and it's going to be gut check time for the Lakers in Game 5. Obviously, it's not an elimination game. Their season isn't over if they lose. But, man, you do not want to go down 3-2 and give this Phoenix team and give Chris Paul, momentum going into Game 6, because they'll go into Game 6 saying, hey, we won Game 4. We won Game 4 with a hampered Anthony Davis. He'll be limited at best if he does play in Game 6, which, let's see, when is Game 6? That is going to be on Thursday. Game 6 will be on Thursday at the Staples Center. Of course, Game 5 will be tomorrow in Phoenix. So this is gonna be some series, depending on how this plays out. Because I think at the end of the day, you look at the series, you say, okay, who doesn't have a rash of injuries? Whoever that is going to win this series. Because again, CP3 looked very limited in the rest of game one and in 2 and 3. Did not look like himself at all. Yesterday, he showed flashes. His leadership was unbelievable. His defense was great. The Suns' defense in general was great. Although I do feel like the Lakers did get some good looks. But I think it's time for Vogel to make adjustments. You could make the argument that last year he didn't really have to, because save for a few games, the Lakers pretty much blew past everybody in the bubble. They did. They gentlemen swept Portland. They gentlemen swept Houston. They gentlemen swept Denver. Miami's the only team that really pushed them, but even in that series, you still feel like the Lakers are going to get this done. So this is a real series now. This is a real series. So, and it is panic time for the Lakers. I think they have to get Game 5. I will go so far as to say as if they don't get Game 5, I don't think they win the series, because you'll go into Game 6. Yeah, you'll be at home, but you'll have a limited Anthony Davis if he plays at all. And Phoenix will come in saying, hey, our backs were against the wall in Game 4, down 2-1. We don't want to go down 3-1. And we went on the road and won. And if we lose Game 6, we got a home Game 7. Now, we all know Game 7, we really find out what guys are made of in Game 7, because as the old cliche goes, palms get sweaty, backsides get tight. So, we find out what guys are really made of in these Game 7s. But who knows if we'll even get to that point this coming weekend. All eyes will be on Game 5, Lakers, Suns, and definitely all eyes will be on LeBron. Can he turn back the clock? He's been good in this series, but he hasn't been like, 2013 or 2018 LeBron James. I mean, he's been good. Don't get me wrong. But unfortunately, that's probably what's going to take for the Lakers to win Game 5 on the road in Phoenix, with the Suns having all the momentum and the Suns being more healthy than the Lakers. So I think that's interesting. Now, I'll continue with the playoffs. I'll get to the Clippers, and boy, you want to talk about a series turning on a dime. My goodness. I buried the Clippers on Friday's show. I thought they were going to get swept. I flat out said in the show, I think they were going to lose Game 3 and get swept in Game 4. And worst case for the Mavs, they'll close them out in Game 5 in LA. And all of a sudden, it's 2-2. Just like Lakers Suns, Mavs Clippers is a tie series, with the Mavericks dealing with the injuries. Luka Doncic is banged up. Kawhi is playing amazing. Give credit where credit's due. Paul George is also playing amazing. So I'll get to the Clippers a little later, but let me shift to our only NFL topic of the day. Julio Jones, as we all found out on a phone call live on Fox Sports 1 last Monday, was on the phone with Shannon Sharp. Shannon called him live TV. I don't know if Julio knew he was live or not, but he called, Shannon called Julio, and he said point blank, are you staying in Atlanta? He said, nah, man, I'm out of there. So that confirmed it. The whole country got to hear Julio Jones say, I'm out of Atlanta. I'm done. So obviously the Falcons, we had heard for about a month now, I think right before the draft. They said after June 1st, which is, of course, tomorrow, starting on June 1st or after June 1st, something like that, the cap hit will not be near as bad if they trade Julio at that point than if they did it beforehand. So obviously they're going to wait. And now they're talking to teams about a deal. And reports came out yesterday that they are talking to the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I don't know what Seattle can give up. Seattle has not just Seattle, nobody in the NFC West in general. I think the entire NFC West, I don't think anybody in that division next year is a first-round pick. Arizona doesn't. San Francisco doesn't. Rams don't. Seahawks don't. So, I think it goes to show you how aggressive the front offices are in that division, because it is so competitive and without a doubt the best division in the National Football League. But Seattle's talking to Atlanta. Short term, if Seattle gets Julio Jones and doesn't have to give up DK Metcalf, whoo. But the first thing, I swear to y'all, the first thing I thought about when I saw Falcons, Seahawks talking about a Julio Jones deal, I'm thinking, man, Aaron Rodgers has got to be beside himself right now. He's got to be beside himself, because we go back to last offseason. I won't even get into the whole story. They draft Jordan Love. They didn't tell Aaron they were going to draft Jordan Love. And then they took a running back in the second round, which they didn't need. And yet and still, last year, Aaron Rodgers won most valuable player. And he was unbelievable last season, deserved MVP, and carried the Packers to the NFC Championship game, where they ultimately lost to a better team in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay was a better team than Green Bay. I know Green Bay was at Lambeau. Tampa Bay was a better team. So this offseason, it's like the Packers are deliberately going out of their way to try and make Aaron Rodgers as ticked off as possible. That seems like what the Packers are doing right now, because they let their Pro Bowl center go. Okay, they kept Aaron Jones, who was a free agent, but on a reduced contract, compared to what we thought he was going to get. We thought Aaron Jones was going to end up being one of the highest paid backs in the league, considering what he's done these last couple of years, and not really. He took a pay cut to stay in Green Bay. Not real sure why, but hey, that's his business. And so you heard, okay, J.J. Watt released by the Houston Texans. J.J. wants to go to a contender. Houston released him. And so we hear the rumors. J.J. Watt wants to come to Green Bay. Why? Well, J.J. Watt's a Wisconsin kid. He grew up there. He played college football at Wisconsin. He was a dominant player there. Why not go to the Packers and see if you can win a Super Bowl in your home state? And Green Bay was not willing to pay him. Okay, so J.J. Watt goes to a team that would pay him, the Arizona Cardinals. And then we're seeing now with Julio Jones. Man, you want to get Aaron Rodgers to stay. How about trade for Julio Jones? You'd have Julio and Devontae Adams. You'd have like two of the five best receivers in the National Football League on one receiving core in Green Bay. That sure convinced Aaron Rodgers to stay, wouldn't you think? And the Packers are not even being mentioned in the Julio Jones sweepstakes. Seems like the Tennessee Titans are. Ryan Tannehill is not Aaron. He's a good quarterback. He's fine. He is not Aaron Rodgers. And the Titans are being aggressive, going to see if they can make their offense better, trying to put themselves in position to maybe be contenders, right? We're hearing that the 49ers, as loaded of a roster as they have, they're like, hey, let's get better. Let's get better. That's the Shanahan and John Lynch mentality. Where can we get better? Where can we be aggressive and get better? And here's Green Bay stuck in their ways. We do it this way and no other way. This is why they're driving away their franchise quarterback. Do you really blame Aaron Rodgers for not wanting to stay in Green Bay? Do you really blame the man? Okay, because he's seeing all these star free agents or all these star players asking for trades. And in no instance has Green Bay ever been brought up in going after these teams. Seattle has. You know what? Let's look at the Seattle Seahawks for a second. Because before Aaron Rodgers was in the news for asking a trade, it was Russell Wilson. Remember this a few months ago? Seemed like I talked about it every day on my show. Every Monday, Thursday, and Friday on Carving It Up, I was talking about Russell Wilson and where he might get traded if he is traded. And I'm like, man, Seattle's got to fix this. Like, this is the best player in your franchise's history. Like, you got to take care of Russell Wilson. You have to. Because what was Russell's complaints? They're not building the offensive line around me the way they need to. And Pete Carroll and the old offensive coordinator there, they're not giving me any say in what we should do. I'm Russell Wilson. I know the game. I'm in at the time he was in his 9th year. Like, I have some input. I have a voice. And Seattle wouldn't give him a voice. And so Russell Wilson this offseason, he went on the Dan Patrick show on Peacock and said, like, I'm kind of frustrated right now. Like, he didn't really hide it. I'm kind of frustrated with Seattle right now. What did the Seahawks do? They fired the offensive coordinator, hired a new one. Okay. They went out, got Gerald Everett, solid tight end. They upgraded their offensive line. And more than anything, Pete Carroll, who was on another show on Peacock, the Rich Eisen show, Pete Carroll went on there, said him and Russell talked. They're on good terms. And now Seattle is in the sweepstakes and having discussions with the Atlanta Falcons to go get Julio Jones. That is how you repair a relationship with a disgruntled quarterback. That's how you do it. Seattle, Green Bay, Seattle showed you how to do it, right? You draft well, you be aggressive in free agency, you address the needs that your quarterback says you need to get better at, and anytime there's a star possibly on the market, which Julio Jones is not a star, he's a superstar. He's one of the best receivers, even, he's had injury issues, but he's still, and when he's healthy, he's as good as there is. He's fast. He's just physically God-gifted athlete. He's one of the best receivers, talent-wise, I think we've ever seen. And so Seattle's like, hey, let's get him. Let's get him. Let's make our offense that much better. Let's keep ourselves in Super Bowl contention and keep our star quarterback happy. Why are you trying to tick off your quarterback, Green Bay? I go back to the Bob Myers quote, different sport, NBA, but same circumstances. It's kind of like, I'm a Golden State fan. I'm not even going to hide about that. But, Steph Curry had an unbelievable season. I think he's the MVP, and a lot of people don't. That's fine. The point is, Steph had an unbelievable regular season and almost dragged the Golden State Warriors to the postseason. And so, in a lot of these games, he was getting triple teamed. Why? They didn't respect anybody else in the Warriors to consistently get them buckets because Klay was out. Klay Thompson was out once again with an injury. And so, what did Bob Myers say at the Warriors' end of season press conference? General manager of the Warriors, Bob Myers, great at his job. When a reporter asked, what are you going to do in the offseason to help Steph, to give Steph extra help that he needs to put this team back in the championship picture? What did Bob Myers say? He said, we owe it to Steph Curry. We owe Steph to make this team better, to make this roster better, to go win more championships. Because he realized, Bob Myers realizes, like, Steph Curry is the greatest Golden State Warrior of all time. It's the greatest Warrior ever. Better than Rick Barry, better than Wilt Chamberlain, greatest Warrior ever. So he's like, hey, we got to take advantage of what we got right now because we will never get another Steph Curry again. We will never get another Steph Curry again. And Steph's going to be a free agent next year. And so there's this discussion, will Steph stay? Will he sign the extension that would pay him in excess of $50 million a year? And so Bob Myers is saying, let's look and see where we can get better, whether it's in the draft, which I don't think is going to be the case, free agency, where trades, where can we make this team better because we owe Steph Curry. Boy, I bet Aaron Rodgers wishes the Packers had that mentality because they won't go get anybody. They just expect Aaron, just carry us. And for years, he has. For years, he's gotten them to NFC championship games that they had no business being in. Like, Mike McCarthy, we saw last year, albeit Dak was out, but we saw what Mike McCarthy was last year in Dallas with an average quarterback, Andy Dalton. Like I always say, Andy Dalton's in that category. Low-end starter, high-end backup. Well, he had Andy Dalton, and Dallas, up until the last few games of the season when they were playing a bunch of nobodies, it was awful. It was a train wreck. They were getting blown out, seemed like every week. And Aaron Rodgers took that guy to, 3 NFC championship games? Right? The one they ended up winning and won the Super Bowl that year when they actually had a good roster around Aaron Rodgers. He took him in 2014 on a bad calf, and they almost beat Seattle. And 2 years later, he carried him to face Atlanta. And Atlanta that year was clearly a better football team all the way around. Their defense was great. Matt Ryan won the MVP that year. Julio Jones. Hint, hint, Green Bay, Julio. So this guy's carried your franchise for years. You owe it to him to put a solid roster around him. You owe it to him to give him a phone call to say, hey, there's a possibility we may take a quarterback with our first round pick. Is Aaron going to be thrilled? Probably not. Probably not. But he'll respect, hey, you know what? They gave me a heads up. It's not like Aaron finds out with the rest of us that they traded up to draft Jordan Love. Aaron Rodgers should not find out that Jordan Love was taken by the Packers the same way that you and me did. Okay, that's not how it's supposed to work. You treat your franchise quarterback the way franchise quarterbacks are supposed to be treated, and Seattle showed you how to do it. Russell Wilson was ticked off with the Seahawks organization. So what did they do? They went and got Gerald Everett in free agency. They got better in the offensive line in the draft and in free agency. And now Pete Carroll. They got a new offensive coordinator. Russ wanted a new offensive coordinator. Okay, they got that. And Pete Carroll, who Russ had some issues with, Pete said, you know what, we talked about it. Any issues that there were are resolved. And now they're in the Julio Jones sweepstakes. Because Seattle was like, we might actually lose Russell Wilson. We cannot let this happen. And they handled it about as well as you possibly could have. Green Bay, talk to Atlanta. Call Atlanta. What does Atlanta want? A couple first round picks? A linebacker? Okay, let's do it. Anything to keep Aaron Rodgers. Anything to keep Aaron Rodgers. One of the 10 greatest quarterbacks ever. These guys don't just grow on trees. Okay? And I'm hearing from multiple sources in Green Bay even from the body language of some of the Packers players in interviews, Aaron Jones, Robert Tonyan, right? Guys that play for Green Bay, I haven't heard a word about how Jordan Love is the future and how he looks good in practice. They signed Blake Bortles. One-hit wonder Blake Bortles in 2017. Outside of that 1 year where the Jags got to the AFC Championship game against New England and almost won it for that matter. Outside of that, Blake Bortles has been a hot mess in the NFL. And the Packers signed Blake Bortles because they're like, if Aaron's not here in week 1, I don't know if we believe in Jordan Love. I don't know if he's ready yet. They might go with Blake Bortles over a guy they took with their first round pick last year. That tells you Green Bay, they made a mistake and they're not going to admit it. And that's the ultimate sign of paranoia. And again, don't blame Aaron Rodgers in the slightest for being ticked off with Green Bay. When you see how Seattle handled their situation, how they, Pete Carroll talked to Russ. They improved in the areas Russ said they needed to improve in, and now they might go get Julio freaking Jones. And Aaron's like, could you could you re-sign my center, please? No, you can't even do that? Oh, okay. I'm out of here. Seattle showed you how to do it, Green Bay. It's on you. So let's get back to the NBA playoffs. The Los Angeles Clippers. Man, I buried them on Friday. A lot of people buried them on Friday. I talked about last year where after they choked the 3-1 lead to Denver in the second round in the bubble last year, I'm like, I'm out on the Clippers because the first episode of Carving It Up back in 2019, it was a day before the 2019-2020 NBA season started. I said, I got the Los Angeles Clippers winning the title. They had the load management and chemistry issues, and it all culminated in blowing a 3-1 lead to Denver, in which in games 5, 6, and 7, they had a double-digit lead. And they still lost all 3 games in the series, and their championship hopes went up in smoke. And so I said, you know what? I'm out of my Clippers. I'm done. I don't care if they go get Michael Jordan from 1988. I'm out of the Clippers. And so I sold my stock. I still don't think they're going to win the championship. But Friday's show, it was ahead of Game 3 at Dallas. That arena, American Airlines. I can't remember. Is it the center or the arena? Because I know Dallas and Miami have arenas called American Airlines. I just don't know if Dallas is American Airlines Center or American Airlines Arena. That's another story for another day. But point is, they're at home. It's going to be a full house. All these, had a bunch of Dallas Cowboys there. You have Michael Irvin there and Dak and Zeke and all these different guys. Like, this is a big game. Like, can Dallas take a 3-0 lead the way that they've been playing? Wasn't exactly a stretch to think so. And what did they do in Game 3? They took a 19-point lead. And I'm watching that game. I'm like, oh, Clippers they're done. They're toast. And what'd they do? Came back and won the game. Game 4 yesterday, that game was over. Won by 25 points. I think they led by as many as 30. It felt like they were up by 50 watching that game. So, and Luka is dealing with nerve issues in his neck. He said he's probably going to play in Game 5. So, that's his status up in the air. I believe Game 5 is on Wednesday night. It is. We do not know what time that game is yet. They haven't come out and said. But Vegas already says the Clippers are 7-point favorites. So Vegas likes the Clippers a lot. But this has been one of those series where the road team has won every game. Dallas won the first 2 in LA. LA won the next 2 in Dallas. So we haven't had a home team win any of the first 4 games. So it's just kind of been one of those series. So here's my thing about the Clippers. Am I still guaranteed? I feel like they got the edge. I feel like they got, Charles Barkley made a good point last night. He said, I think he was like his first year in Phoenix back when the first round was a best of 5 and not a best of 7. He said we were playing the LA Lakers. Lakers came into town, into Phoenix, and won the first 2 games. Now remember, best of 5, Lakers win 1 more, the series is over. And Chuck said that, the head coach there said, hey, win 1 game on the road and it changes the whole trajectory of the series. And what did Phoenix do? They won in LA in Game 3, won in LA in Game 4, came back home, won the series in Game 5. So that's kind of the mindset of where Phoenix was back in those days. And you can see you can just kind of feel the different vibes around this series. Clippers seem like they got no momentum. They're going on the road for 2 games. Dallas is all the momentum, and the Clippers go on the road and wins games. They come back and win game 3, and won it fairly easily in the last few minutes of the basketball game. And then last night, that was a blowout from start to finish. They end up winning by 25. And Luka, again, looks very limited out there. Here's my one concern about the Clippers, and here's what I'd say if I'm Rick Carlisle. Great coach, great head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. I'd say, look, had a great opportunity to keep home court advantage, even if we split at home. Okay, we're going to LA with a 3-1 lead. We won the first 2 games in LA. All the pressure's on them for what happened last postseason. Let's just go and close them out. Obviously, that wasn't able to happen. So if I'm Rick Carlisle, I say this. Look, first of all, we won the first 2 games in Los Angeles. Okay, so we have that going for us. And secondly, here's what we got to do. Keep it close. Because what have we seen? And we saw it in game 1. And I talked about this. I've talked about this for about a month on the show. That all season long, the Clippers were the second worst team in the entire NBA. Only team that was worse was the Houston Rockets, who had the worst record in the entire league. So that's not a category you want to be in. The Clippers were the second worst team in the entire NBA in clutch time moments, basically clutch time points, which is essentially game is within 5 points, whether you're up 5 or down 5 in the last 2 minutes of a game. The Clippers were the second worst team in the NBA in that category. So if you're Rick Carlisle, you say, guys, keep it close. Outside of game 4, Dallas has been shooting the lights out from 3. But they've been shooting. Hardaway's been knocking down threes. Doncic, Finney-Smith, Brunson. I mean, Kleber. They've been knocking down threes all over the place outside of yesterday. So it's like, okay, yes, you know what? Yesterday, guys, just had a crappy game. Had one our night. Some nights it's just not your night, and it wasn't Dallas's night yesterday. But we keep them close. We've won here before. We've won here twice before. Keep it close. Get it into the last 2 minutes. And they unravel. The Clippers unravel. They just do. Because as great of a player as Kawhi is, and Kawhi has played amazing in this entire series. Paul George in Dallas played great. Pandemic P hasn't showed up yet. But I've always said Paul George, his worst games are in closeout games. So we haven't had a closeout game yet where the Clippers season is on the line. So, we haven't reached that point yet. But if you're Dallas, you want to get it to that point. But who else on the Clippers do you trust in a big game? Heck, you definitely don't trust Paul George. Do you trust Kawhi? You say, well, he hit the game 7 buzzer beater shot against Philadelphia 2 years ago. Guys, it bounced 4 times and went in. I don't like throwing the term lucky around too much because these are professional athletes. Not much that happens is just straight up luck. Okay, these are just incredible athletes. They're the best of the best. But Kawhi shot that ball falling out of bounds. It bounced 4 times and went in. I don't think Kawhi's intent for it was to bounce 4 times before dropping in. Outside that, Kawhi doesn't have a history of hitting clutch shots. He just doesn't. That's just not in his DNA. Paul George definitely doesn't have a history of that. Keep it close if you're Dallas. Now, if you're the Clippers, you're like, you want to get out the gates quickly like you did yesterday. Because at that point, there's no pressure and you can cruise to a win. Okay, because when the Clippers build leads, outside of last year's playoffs, they normally hold them because they're a great defensive team and they're one of the best offensive teams in the league. I think they were top 5 in both categories, offensively and defensively. Normally, that's the makings of a championship team. But because it's the Clippers, because it's guys who have struggled in the playoffs outside of Kawhi Leonard, you have that doubt. And you got to be thinking, outside of Kawhi stays the same regardless. If it's game 1 or game 7, he's the same dude, same guy. Everybody else, if the series wanes on, you get into a close game, it's game 5, you don't want to go to Dallas down 3-2. Okay, you getting a little nervous, a little anxious after what happened last year. So I give the Clippers tremendous credit for winning these last 2 games on the road against the Mavericks. Tremendous credit because it's a full arena. Mavs had all the momentum. They opened up with a 19-point lead in game 3. And to be sitting here on Monday's show and it's a tied series, credits to the Clippers. I'll give credit where credit's due. Good on you. Again, the series is not over. And I picked the Clippers in 6 before the series started. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. But this feels dead even. I feel like the Clippers have the momentum because they've won the last 2. But this feels like it's dead even. Obviously, the series is dead even. But with the Lakers and Suns, it's like, okay, Phoenix has got the momentum here. AD's probably not going to play Game 5. They won on the road in Game 4. They're coming back home. A chance to put the Lakers into an elimination game in Game 6. Like, Phoenix feels like they have the momentum. In this series, the Clippers, it feels like they do, but there's still that reasonable doubt, right? Because, again, they have yet to win a home playoff game yet. They haven't done that. So Dallas goes in with that confidence, and certainly whenever Game 6 is, which I believe is Friday, Clippers will go into Dallas saying, hey, we won Game 3 and 4. So this can be a really, really interesting series, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. So last topic of the day, Knicks-Hawks. This is a series that I actually predicted the Knicks to win in 5 games. So I'm way off on that. The only way for them to win now is to do it in 7, and I don't anticipate that happening. They're down 3 games to 1. Trae Young has been unbelievable. The entire Hawks team has. Nate McMillan has completely outcoached Tom Thibodeau, who, I still think Tom Thibodeau's coach of the year, but, he's been outcoached by Nate McMillan. By the way, Atlanta, please give that man an extension. That dude's your head coach. Like they finished 27-10 after they fired Lloyd Pierce and added Nate McMillan. Like you got it. You got to keep this guy. This can't just be your interim head coach. You got to make sure you extend him once the offseason hits, whenever Atlanta's season ends. You got to make sure you extend this guy long-term because he's your guy. He's clearly your guy. With all the young talent they have in this roster, you got to make sure they keep them together and make sure he's at the helm. But I think what we're seeing from the New York Knicks is maybe what we should have expected. That once you get to the playoffs, like there's always these teams, and we saw it with the Bucks the last 2 years in the playoffs before they upgraded, adding Drew Holiday and PJ Tucker. And by the way, Brent Forbes, my goodness. Brent Forbes was amazing against the Heat. But before the Bucks really upgraded their roster, they were the team, they had Giannis, they had a top 5 player. And they had a fairly deep team and a pretty well-coached team. They just played harder than everybody. And what did that result in? 2 straight years of having the best record in basketball. But when you get to the playoffs, everybody's playing hard. Not everybody's always playing hard in the regular season. Maybe you catch a team that's, their 4th straight road game on the opposite coast, back-to-back games. Like some teams, they're just tired. They just can't wait to come home and get some rest, right? Playoffs, different story. Every game matters. Everybody's going to play hard for 48 minutes. That's, I think, what we're seeing with the Knicks. Now, to be fair to Julius Randle, and I think he's he already did win most improved players. He should. He had a great season. He was an all-star. But I think it's safe to say about Julius Randle, he's not a 1. He's not going to lead you to a championship. And nobody thought the Knicks were championship contenders. Nobody thinks the Hawks are championship contenders, right? The contenders out east, there's 3 teams, Philly, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee. That's it. Knicks weren't in that category. But you look at how Atlanta's played defensively. Julius Randle has not played it well at all in the series. Neither has RJ Barrett. Derrick Rose has basically carried them. Like, Derrick Rose is like a blast from the past outside of the leaping ability. Like, Derrick Rose has played amazing. And so it's it's going to be a tough way for the next season to come to an end. I don't know. I don't know if I have them winning Game 5 on Wednesday or not. Maybe guys like, Taj Gibson steps up, Reggie Bullock, who didn't play well yesterday. Maybe they'll feed on the energy of the Garden to win Game 5, to not get gentlemen swept, as they say. But I think the series is over. Atlanta's clearly the better team. Atlanta's been the better team in all 4 games. Knicks just made a big comeback in Game 2 to win. But then the Hawks have been the best team in these 4 games. And, there's a reason they got a 3-1 lead. Trae Young's been excellent. And I think the series is pretty much over. But I think this is what we're seeing. Like the Knicks, they've got some work to do on their roster. It's a good roster, but yeah, I think it's showing this is not a roster that can win a playoff series. And with all due respect to Julius Randle, with all, I mean, he, as hard of a worker as there is in the league, no doubt deserved most improved player, without a question. He was my most improved player. NBA writers voted him most improved player, as he should. But he's not a 1. He's probably a 2, right? I mean, he's an all-star. He's most improved player. He'll continue to get better. Usually, you look at the history of most improved players in the NBA, and they usually turn into perennial all-stars most of the time. So that's a good sign for the Knicks, for Julius Randle. But the front office in New York got to make sure they don't overpay him. And they got to go out and get another star via either a trade or via free agency to make this team better and, maybe give them a shot to win maybe more than one playoff series. Who knows? Depends on who they get. So with that is all the time we have for this afternoon's show. Thank y'all so much for stopping by on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. Again, one more time, salute to all the incredibly brave men and women who served this country and who lost their lives fighting for freedom. Again, keep their family, friends, loved ones in your thoughts and prayers today, as this cannot be an easy day for them. So may we never forget their sacrifice, what they did, and God bless them, God bless this country, and God bless y'all. Stay safe.